What's going on, you bunch of heathens? Today we are checking out another Wendigoon video. This one, that time the CIA faked a vampire attack to take over a country. I'm sorry, I just had to check this one out after the Frank Sinatra killings video. Because this, I would say this sounds too unbelievable for the CIA to do. But I know the CIA, so this just sounds right up their fucking alley. Make sure you guys check out the original video. It's linked down below. Without further ado, let's jump in.
Everybody, today we're going to be talking about the time that the CIA faked a vampire attack in order to take over the Philippines. Yeah. Several of my videos
I love how he says like, yeah, no, that really happened
as conspiracy theories, or at least conspiracy adjacent, but this one has been documented by government accounts, several journalists, people who were there and affected by it, as well as the people who organized it themselves. So pretty straightforward. After World War II,
that's fucking insane.
The American government was concerned with communist influence in Southeast Asia. In order to establish power within Southeast Asia, the American government began commandeering several countries in the region. Among their places of concern was the area of central Luzon, Philippines. However, in the late 40s and early 50s, there was a local rebellion taking place within the Philippines.
I just realized, where the fuck are you, Wendy? You look somewhere majestic as fuck. I want to be there. Either that or somewhere snowy.
That the government would have to quell in order to establish dominance in the region. So, in 1950, Lieutenant Colonel Edward Lansdale was sent to the region in order to stop the rebellion by any means necessary. Since the rebel forces were composed of a guerrilla army, direct force didn't seem to work. So instead, Lansdale moved to psychological operations. And among those operations, as we'll talk about, were vampires. The story and a lot of
that's fucking insane.
Around it run deeper than just...
That's insane, but at the same time, with how superstitious I know Southeast Asia is in general, kind of makes sense.
Hoo-hoo ha-ha vampire attack, but we'll also get to the hoo-hoo ha-ha vampire attack, so don't worry. But you'll see how a vampire attack in the Philippines connects to the Kennedy assassination and also sabotage condoms. I'm not kidding.
What?
As soon as I heard about this story, I had to immediately tell somebody about it. I mean, it's too weird not to. And as we move into the spooky season, I think this is a pretty good topic to bring up. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around as we talk about the time that the CIA
sounds interesting
to be vampires. We are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. Now, the Philippines
Thank you for making the video.
The United States has always been messy, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to look at World War II onwards. During the beginning of World War II, the majority of the Philippines were captured by the Japanese military. As soon as the imperial military had taken over the Philippines, they began to use its people and resources for the war effort. And not only did the people of the Philippines have things like their food and farms stolen by the Japanese, but in some cases, the military would even begin to steal their women and children. So, as you can imagine,
pretty standard for the imperial Japanese, unfortunately.
Several of the Philippine people began to fight back. The primary group of Philippine freedom fighters were known as the Hukbalahap. The Hukbalahap, also known as the Huk Rebellion,
makes me wonder, is this mentioned in one of the Fat Electrician videos? Because he mentioned the Philippines a couple times in some of his videos. I wonder if they mentioned these guys.
It's an acronym that translates to the People's Anti-Japanese Army. During the war, the Americans would use the help of the Huks in order to destroy the Japanese holdouts that were within the Philippines. And as the Japanese began to clear out of the region, the Americans would begin to enlist the help of Filipino businessmen and elected leaders. However, this is where the problems begin. So during the beginning of World War II, before America got involved and Japan was taking over the Philippine Islands, several of the businessmen and politicians tried to earn the favor of the Japanese so
they
that
became
they would
collaborators.
have a more favorable outcome as the war progressed. So in the first years of the war, several of these leaders and landlords had allied themselves to the Japanese and would not only feed and house them, but give them advice about fighting their own people who were in the People's Anti-Japanese Army. So at the end of the war, whenever the US government was trying to reinstitute the Filipino government, and they did it using the pre-existing leaders of the Philippines, that doesn't go over well with the people who have been fighting them for the past 4 years, as you could imagine. Because several of these leaders had helped the Japanese destroy their country, and then America comes in and says, yeah, these guys are still in charge. And while tensions were high, there was no direct violence, at least until 1946, when the leader of the PKM, a group that the Huks were allied to, was murdered. Then they decided to get violent again. They changed their name from the People's Anti-Japanese Army to the People's Liberation Army, but still went by the name of Huk. And as America was trying to make a new government for the Philippines, the Huks would smuggle weapons into the mountainside and begin to grow local resistance. It also didn't help the government's case that these local leaders who had previously had to do things under the watchful eye of the Japanese military were now pretty much given free rein by the Americans. So as soon as these leaders got power, they began to take a bunch of the food and resources from farmers and essentially just be a jerk to the peasant class that they didn't care for, which helped to increase support for the opposing Huk rebellion. And by 1949, it's estimated that the Huks had anywhere from 11,000 to 15,000 active fighters.
That's a fucking lot.
Is, for one, whenever you read about the Huks in American or pretty much any official history text, they're kind of just called an offshoot of the Soviet Union and a directly communist strong arm of theirs in the Philippines, because during that time of the Cold War, the concern was between American capitalism and Russian communism. So
they got labeled that because they were going against the US-backed regime, which really sucks. From what it seems, because it's just they were sick and tired of corrupt politicians. That really does suck.
Anytime there was any problem or enemy that came up against America,
they got labeled that.
Well, they're just in league with the communists. And because of that, the Huks have gone down in history as a communist fighter.
Standard Cold War shit.
While the Huks were allies with the PKP, who was a group of fighters who were a part of the Soviet Union, all of the Huk fighters were like farmers who just didn't like having their stuff stolen. So while you could maybe argue that kind of was in line with some of the beliefs, they just...
Kind of, but overall not really. It's just, stop fucking with my shit.
Didn't want to get pushed around. So calling them a Soviet Union military organization is exaggeration at best. I should also mention that while everything I've said until this point paints the Huks out to be just like these valiant freedom fighters fighting against the government, and while there were certainly elements of that, by 1949 the movement had become large enough that people would claim the name of the Huk Rebellion so that they could get away with things like murder and robbery. So while there definitely was a good cause...
good cause originally, then people started appropriating the name to commit crimes. Unfortunate.
By 1949, 1950, the Huks were seen as a bunch of rampant pillagers, at least around heavily populated areas. In the mountainside where the original Huk rebels were, there was more of a grassroots movement to help them, but that dissonance can't last long. Government is not being good to its people, and some of the people are acting a fool. Now, did the United States government care about this? No. They were concerned with the Russian
not a
threat.
surprise.
Everything they did was to advance that end, as we're going to see. So if America is going to have a position of power in the Philippines, which is a very strategic location for anything in Southeast Asia, then they're going to have to deal with this local infighting. So in 1950, the Pentagon sent one of their best men to the Philippines, Lieutenant Colonel Edward Lansdale. Now, if you're weird like I am and into crazy Cold War psyop stuff, Lansdale is a very familiar name. He wrote the book for what...
I'm into it, but I don't actually look into it, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm not like him where I'll look into this shit. Do I find it fucking interesting? Hell yes. But I don't actively go looking for it. You know? I learn a bunch of the shit through people like him and like... Fat Electrician.
Would become the majority of PSYOP tactics from Vietnam forward. He's also very instrumental in a lot of special forces training and tactics and adventures that they would go on later. And he was actually
cool.
one of the founding members of the CIA. Before World War II, when he would join the military, Lansdale was an advertising executive in San Francisco. From that job, he developed knowledge as to how people's minds work and how to convince them of what you want them to think.
I was about to say, he already has background in... I don't even know what you would call it. Psychology, I guess, ish. Like more practical experience, I guess. He was OSS.
He joined the military during World War II, he was sent to the Operation of Strategic Services, or the OSS, which after the war, the members of it created the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA. So Lansdale, one of the first ever CIA agents, gets to the Philippines in 1950 and creates something called the Civil Affairs Office. The Civil Affairs Office was a means for Lansdale to communicate with Filipino leaders of how they can best destroy the Filipino rebellion. As an expert in psychological warfare, Lansdale said that the best way to convince a people of what you want them to think is by using their own truths and ideas against them. So after analyzing the situation and speaking with other
fucking
leaders,
smart.
Lansdale determined...
By the way, I just noticed his shirt. That's a cool fucking shirt. That's the... Is it British, I think? World War II fucking pink net dot shirt for like the desert. I think that's what that is. My brother loves this camo. I think it's a pretty cool camo too. Like that's a nice shirt.
That the majority of Filipino people were very superstitious and had a lot of religious beliefs tied to local tradition. So he decided
that's very Southeast Asian in general, though.
Get him. The first of these operations went as follows. On a cloudy day, he had someone fly a small airplane with a very large speaker attached to it. This airplane flew over the Philippine countryside, where it was believed that several of the locals were aiding and abetting Huck rebels. And from this large speaker flying through the clouds, played several curses in the locals' native language. These messages said that any collaborators who are helping the local rebels will have their family cursed and all of their belongings destroyed if they continue to aid them. And it seems that this worked, as in the following weeks, several groups of Huck rebels turned themselves into the authorities because they were starving. See, typically with these guerrilla factions, they have to rely on the goodwill of others.
That in general, like this sounds stupid, but that is very fucking smart.
And create this underground network of supplies and shelter in order to sustain themselves. But now that these people were afraid of a curse and kicked them out, they had no other option but to turn themselves in or starve to death. So seeing that this was working, Lansdale doubled down. Lansdale had several men embedded into the local population in order to give him information as to where the Hucks were or what they were doing. So using this information, Lansdale began to get data on which specific houses were aiding the rebels. Then, under the cover of night, his agents would go out next to these houses and spray paint these large watching eyes on the streets around these houses. So imagine that you are a local person who is invading a group of rebels. And while...
Oh my God, that's gonna kill... Like, I'm already paranoid enough as it is, because I don't fucking trust people in general. If I know I'm doing something against my government, you know, whatnot, I'm helping a rebel cause or faction or whatever, and then I start seeing, excuse me, big eyes surrounding my house that people have spray painted overnight. Nah, bro, I'm gonna get fucking super paranoid. Fuck that shit.
You're supportive to their cause, you also have yourself and your family to look out for.
Yeah.
And then one day you go to bed, and when you wake up, there are eyes painted all around your house. Would probably make you think twice about helping these guys out. So because of this, collaborators became more few and far between, and the Huck rebels had to more so rely on their own resources. And now that we've set the stage for all that, let's talk about the vampires. Now, the term vampire is a bit of an oversimplification of what actually happened. The Filipino people have a legend of a creature known as an aswang. Aswang itself is kind of an overarching term that can embody ideas from witchcraft to zombie-like risen dead people to demonic spirits or what have you. But the commonality seen throughout Aswang belief is that they are a blood-sucking creature who drains the blood of their victims, most often through a long tongue that...
So it's like a mixture between like a chupacabra and a regular vampire. That's dope. Also, I didn't know this about Southeast Asia, like how, I don't know, I want to say paganistic, I guess, considering, yeah, paganistic. It's like the closest word I could come to it. Southeast Asia is. Michi Mochivi, formerly of VShojo, she was actually brought up to become the next, what was it, shaman, I think, of her village. Because like her grandpa or whatever was the last shaman. And then she was born, and then she was going to be supposed to be the next one. That's just really interesting that they still have, you know, like shaman and whatnot, like spiritual leaders for that kind of shit. Just super interesting to me. Despite the fact that Indo, I don't know if she is, but I know most of Indo, I want to say she is, because I don't think she's necessarily, at least not for me, because I don't really watch streams or VODs of hers. I just mainly clips. But I do know for a fact that most of Indonesia itself is very Muslim. So just like the mixture of modern day religion, you know, and whatnot, with like certain I'm going to keep saying pagan, because that's just what I think of when I hear like shaman and shit. So like certain pagan things with modern day religion is super cool.
Shoots out and stabs people kind of like a mosquito. So Lansdale, having seen that flying a plane and pretending to be God...
And I know we're talking about the Philippines, but it's just a really certain interesting tidbit I know about Indonesia. In Southeast Asia in general.
Maybe they should try the vampire thing. Specifically, there was a mountaintop in central Luzon that was a strategic control point for the Huck rebels. And Lansdale decided to literally scare them out. So he had a couple of his men go to the villages around the mountain and begin talking of how they saw an aswang on the mountain nights prior. Sure enough, other rebels said that within the day, people in the town began to tell stories of how there is an aswang or demonic creature draining the blood of people in the forest around the mountain. So Lansdale waited a couple days, at which point he was sure that the information got back to the
Lansdale really is fucking smart in this shit,
to send a group to attack. So a couple nights after this story's been floating around, there is a group of Huck rebels on top of the mountain doing a patrol around the trails along the top of the mountain itself. And as they're patrolling, this group of hitmen sneak up on them. Whenever the patrol has their guard down, they grab the guy in the back of the patrol and drag him into the bushes. Once they've got a hold of him,
that's so some horror shit.
And take two small puncturing devices. I'm not sure if it was like a screwdriver or what. But
so probably like a screwdriver or a syringe or an ice pick maybe, and puncture his fucking neck to make it seem like he got fucking blood sucked by a vampire.
They put 2 holes into his neck and hung him upside down to drain all the blood from his body. Then once that's done, they
some real horror shit
onto the trail where he went missing, so that whenever his guys come looking for him, they find his body drained of blood with 2 puncture holes in the neck. So yes, with no exaggeration, straight from their own admittance and declassified records, the CIA staged a vampire attack on this random Filipino freedom fighter. And perhaps even more surprisingly, it worked. The next day, the entire rebel force,
like, not really super surprising,
now,
but I mean,
they thought that an aswang was attacking them and may kill their entire camp. Possibly. But also, like, if I was with a group of friends and we were camping on a mountain and we thought that one of us had been killed by a vampire, we would probably leave. But if I was with a group of friends on top of the mountain and we thought that some random dude killed our friend and staged it to look like a vampire, we would also probably leave.
I was gonna say, either way, I'm fucking leaving that mountain. Yeah, no matter what, whether I think it's a real vampire or someone making it seem like it's a vampire, either way, I'm probably fucking leaving that place.
Assume that at least some people thought it was an Oswong. At the same time, a lot of people probably thought that it was the CIA killing them and draining their blood, which is also a pretty good reason to get out of there.
Honestly, I don't think so. I have to disagree with here. I honestly don't think, because CIA isn't super well known at this point. I don't think. So I'm going to have to disagree. I don't think that they actually thought it was anyone else. I think they actually thought it was a vampire. As I probably would as well. If I didn't know any other, like, the CIA, like, if I didn't know of the CIA or any spy agency, I'd probably think the same thing.
From here, psychological operations continued in the Philippines for some time to come. And while everyone likes to remember the flying plane threatening curses at people and the giant eyes and obviously the vampire attack, there were a lot of other psychological operations that had the same, if not greater, effect. For example, Lansdale began a radio show that people in the mountains for the first time could hear directly from their leaders how they're trying to rebuild the country. Lansdale made sure that government officials were no longer being abusive to the locals, which, again, if the locals feel like they're not being oppressed, they don't really have the need to support a group of freedom fighters. And several government leaders would dress up and pretend to be Huck rebels and go through villages stealing food and yelling at people. So as villagers began to think that the government was beginning to have their best interests and be supportive, while the Hucks were murdering people and acting like jerks, half legitimate, half government officials dressed up as Huck rebels, then support for the Huck Rebellion began to die out.
Oh, so they actually... Ow. Sorry, I just smacked my face on my fucking mic. So they actually... So he actually, what am I trying to fucking say here? Help the government. So wait, actually, to stop the rebels, actually fucking put a stop to the government being dickbags, and then also instructed the government to be dickbags, but say that they were Huck rebels. Yeah, that's cool.
It was also about this time, again around 1953, that the Filipino government was like, wow, thanks, America. We sure are glad you helped us out with those rebels. You can go ahead and leave whenever you want. And the CIA was like, yeah.
You fucking wish.
Leave. While Lansdale was there,
exactly.
he became friends with someone known as Raymond Magsaysay. During Lansdale's operations in the country, Raymond was the head of their Department of Defense. And Raymond aided Lansdale in his operations in the Philippines. So the two became friends whenever Lansdale was doing his operations. And around 1952,
yeah, big quotes
says, hey,
there.
Raymond, why don't you run for president? And Raymond says it's a great idea and begins to run. But as soon as he does, he quickly realizes that it's not him running for president, it's the CIA running for president. Raymond was used as a puppet, and everything from his speeches to his policies were decided by the U.S. government. To ensure Raymond's election, the CIA began running smear campaigns against all of Raymond's opponents. Everything from rumors in the paper to spiking their drinks before they gave a speech in order to make them look unfavorable to the public. One day,
insane work.
Speech, Raymond suggested that perhaps this time, instead of Lansdale and the CIA giving him a speech, maybe Raymond could write his own speech or have one of the locals help him write his speech. And Lansdale...
You fucking wish, buddy. You fucking wish. The CIA ain't gonna let you go.
Got so mad that he began to hit Raymond to the point that Raymond was knocked out. By the time Raymond was elected in 1953, he was so battered and...
That's one hell of a lover's quarrel. That's my toxic yowie right there, boys. Let's go. That's my toxic yowie.
scared of the US government that he sent a message directly to President Eisenhower that said, "I will do whatever the United States wants me to do, even if my people disagree with it." Also from declassified reports, whenever the day of the
I know I'm making jokes about it, but that's really sad that he is that worried about his safety that he does that. Like, that's really sad. And I know I'm making jokes about it, but fuck.
election came and Raymond was elected, it turns out the CIA had illegally smuggled guns into the country and hidden them around the city so that if he wasn't elected, they could stage a coup. In 1957,
Jesus!
He even passed a new law that said the Philippines will never accept any form of communism, as it, quote, puts us under the control and domination of an alien power. And you know, we wouldn't want that now, would we?
No, we sure as hell wouldn't. I did not have sexual relations with Linsdale. I did not have CIA relationships with the United States.
Raymond died in a plane crash in 1957, and immediately the CIA had a new puppet that they wanted to run. And one of the opponents of the CIA, who was also running at the time, was named Claro Recto. And
that first off, that's a hell of a name. Second off, CIA probably killed that guy.
initially, the CIA just wanted to kill him, but then decided they couldn't for logistic purposes. So as part of their smear campaign against him,
logistic reasons, holy shit,
of condoms all over populated areas that said they were from Claro Recto, but in the top of all of them was a...
I keep substituting Recto and for his last name as Rectum. Holy shit.
very visible hole poke, so that the people would think this guy running for office wants to sabotage their love life for some reason. In May of 1954, the leader...
I don't know. He could always spin that as being like, yeah, no, we want the population to grow. Could always spin it that way, I guess.
The Huck rebels, Louis Tarouk, would turn himself into the authorities, and surprisingly only got 15 years in jail, which I would assume they'd just kill him. But with Tarouk,
yeah, you would assume.
A lot of people considered 1954 to be the official end of...
You would assume, huh? I mean, good on him for being able to fucking live.
Of the Hucks. Lansdale was shortly thereafter transferred to Vietnam, even though we weren't officially there yet. And from there, Lansdale would go on to develop a lot of the tactics that were used in psychological warfare during the war in Vietnam. Among them, famously, is Operation Wandering Soul, where they tried to convince Vietnamese soldiers that there were ghosts in the jungle. And no, I'm not kidding. However, he wasn't directly...
Isn't that the... I think that's the one where they blasted like ghost and spooky sounds and like all that screaming and shit into the forest of Vietnam, I think that's what that was. I'm not positive though.
With that operation, it was more so his influence and the departments he created, because at the time he was the lead in Operation Mongoose. Operation Mongoose was the secret operation that didn't officially happen until they said it officially happened years later, like they always do, where Lansdale was officially tasked with killing Castro, or at least destroying the Cuban government by whatever means possible. After Lansdale's failure with this and things like the Bay of Pigs operation, he was officially fired.
He was a big dude then. Like that, like I know Wendy said that, but that really cements it. He was a big player in the early days of the CIA then, huh? Like shit.
From his position as head over CIA psychological warfare by the Kennedy administration, more specifically McNamara. However, he still maintained several ties to the CIA after this, and according to many theorists, was a part of the Kennedy assassination. Or if he wasn't directly one of the collaborators, at least knew about it. Which for a guy who's already faked a vampire attack and pretended to be God, I'm sure killing a president's like a normal Tuesday for him. And with that, we have the end of the story of that time the CIA pretended to be vampires in order to take over the Philippines. See, I told you I wasn't lying. And remember, kids, the next time that somebody tells you the government wouldn't do that, oh yes they would. Because if pretending to
God, that's my fucking I don't know what it is. I hate it when people say, "Oh, the government wouldn't do that to us." Yes, they would. Whatever you're thinking the government, like, what the worst thing you think the government's done, they've done worse. The government, like, no. No. You're stupid if you think the government wouldn't fucking try to sabotage you.
vampires is something they're just willing to throw out there, think about the stuff they're not willing to tell us. And while I'll probably do longer videos in the future where I compile a lot of them, I read about this story and there was no way I couldn't talk about it immediately right now with no hesitation. So hopefully if
I'm all here for
watching, you think it's at least half as cool as I know it is. And if you do, that's really cool. And I'm really glad you're here and you're really cool. And I just want to say thank you for watching.
Thank you for making the video.
Like I said, as the moment I heard about this story, I was like,
thanks for saying I'm cool, by the way, Wendy.
I have to tell everyone right now immediately.
I'm into this shit.
It's also a good introduction to spooky season. Me and my conspiracy theory Heaven self and vampires. Like what a horrible connection. I love it. But thank you all for watching this long. If you're curious about reading more into it, there's this fantastic book by William Bloom called Killing Hope: U.S. Military and CIA Interventions Since World War II. He's a journalist or was a journalist. He's passed away now, but he went through all of the court records and declassified information and laid out all of the government's meddling post World War II. And it's a fantastic book. I'm working my way through. And
that sounds interesting.
All of this stuff, like very thoroughly, and it's a great read. And there's a lot more where this came from. I'll probably eventually make a video.
I'll have to check it out eventually.
A brief summary of all of them, because I think they're really cool. Also, you may know about William Bloom because he was considered a very controversial figure when in 2006, Osama bin Laden, during one of his broadcasts, recommended his book, Rogue State, A Guide to the World's Only Superpower, saying that it's a good book against the American government. And
shit.
Whenever that happened, he had the best book sales he ever experienced, but was never asked to speak in any public events again. Because he was, obviously.
I wonder why.
Because Osama bin Laden spoke for him. But he does make a lot of good summaries and compilations are made. I keep saying it. He's passed away now, but he's still here in spirit.
Hey,
he made
keep saying it the way you want.
Compilations of not just conspiracy-esque stuff, but just shady stuff they've admitted to doing, like the vampire attacks. And like I said, there will be more of this whenever I get done working my way through the book. So hopefully you enjoyed it because there's more. I
did. This was interesting.
But for now, I want to say thank you.
Not
all
as
so
big
much
a surprise as you would
video.
think, but yes.
After I botched I'm so paranoid with stuff. After I mess something up, I'm like, that's it. That's the channel. That's all she wrote. And then I messed up the Frankenstein upload, but then you guys are just as supportive as ever on a video about a black and white movie, again, that none of us were alive for, and that means a lot. So hopefully you enjoyed. I also want to mention,
because we love you, Wendy.
Internet Historian, one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, made a video on his main channel that I got to be the face and the voice of, the lead role, and that meant a lot.
Was this? Oh, this was 3 years ago. Oh, so this is an old... I didn't even know this was an old video. Oh, shit. Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, that's the one Internet Historian got in a lot of shit for because he, plagiarized a lot of the fucking script for it, I think. Damn, this is an old video.
One of my favorite channels.
Yeah, he's dope.
And it's weird to think, 2 of his videos ago, I started YouTube, and now I'm... front and center in one of his. It's a blessing.
That's really cool.
So I'll link that video in the description because I think it's really cool and you all should check it out. And again, thanks, man, for putting me in that. It means the world. But anyway, I believe that should do it for now.
Yeah, that's dope.
I believe we're at 1.84 million. Thank you all so much for that. It means the world. And I'm excited for spooky.
You bit past that, buddy.
coming up ahead, so stay tuned for that. But for now,
I didn't realize. God, this video's that old? The Frank Sinatra killings ones was fucking recent, wasn't it? I think it was within a couple of weeks, so...
I just want to say...
Shit!
Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed.
I did enjoy
we'll
it.
See you in the next one.
Bye. Well, that was Wendigoon. That time the CIA faked a vampire attack to take over a country. That was good. I did not know that it was that old. Shit. Like, I did not know this video was that old. Fuck me. It's really good. Make sure you guys check out the original. Like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, you guys take care of yourselves. See ya.